For 16 years, American commercial aviation didn't have a single major disaster. No mass casualty crashes, no mid-air collisions, just nothing. The longest safety streak in the industry's history. Then, on the night of January 29th, 2025, two aircraft that were never supposed to occupy the same sliver of sky closed the distance between them to less than the length of a football field over the middle of Washington, D.C. 67 people never made it home. Here's what makes this crash different from almost anything else on this channel. There was no mechanical failure, no storm, no terrorism. Two well-trained flight crews, a fully staffed control tower, some of the most advanced collision avoidance technology on Earth. And none of it stopped what happened. Investigators later found something even harder to explain. The FAA had data showing more than 15,000 close proximity events between helicopters and airliners at this exact airport in just over 3 years, and never acted on it. By the end of this video, you'll understand exactly how a system with that many warning signs missed the one that mattered, and why the final report, released only months ago, points the blame in a direction almost nobody expected. Reagan National is one of the most cramped major airports in the country, squeezed onto a peninsula in the Potomac River, minutes from the Pentagon, the White House, and restricted airspace on almost every side. To keep military and government helicopter traffic moving without crowding the main flight paths, controllers route helicopters along a series of low-altitude corridors that trace the river itself, corridors that pass directly beneath the approach paths jets use to land. For decades, this worked, until, on paper, it very nearly hadn't been working for years. American Eagle Flight 5342, operated by PSA Airlines using a Bombardier CRJ-700, departed Wichita, Kansas that evening, bound for Washington. On board, 60 passengers and 4 crew, including Captain Jonathan Campos and First Officer Sam Lilly. As the jet approached DCA, it was cleared to land on runway 33, a runway that requires a distinctive banking turn over the river in the final minute before touchdown. At the same time, a U.S. Army UH-60 Blackhawk, callsign PAT-25, was flying a routine annual training flight along the river's helicopter corridor using night vision goggles as required for pilot certification. 3 soldiers were aboard. This wasn't a VIP transport or an emergency mission. That night, a single air traffic controller was managing both the helicopter corridor and the airport's local runway traffic. A combined workload later described by investigators as not normal for that time of the evening. As the 2 aircraft converged, the controller asked the helicopter crew if they had the CRJ in sight. The crew confirmed they did and requested to maintain their own visual separation. But several aircraft were converging on the airport at that moment. Investigators would later conclude the helicopter crew had very likely locked onto the wrong set of lights, mistaking another aircraft in the distance for Flight 5342, and never actually saw the jet that was closing on them. Compounding this, the helicopter and the airplane were communicating on 2 different radio frequencies, and the Blackhawk was flying roughly 80 feet above its route's legal ceiling, the result of a known quirk in how that helicopter model's altimeter can misread altitude by up to 200 feet. Roughly 26 seconds before the 2 aircraft met, a conflict alert sounded in the control tower. The aircraft were still 1.6 miles apart, in theory enough distance to act. Investigators later determined the controller should have issued a direct safety alert to both crews at that moment. That alert never came. At 8:48 p.m., the jet and the helicopter collided in the air less than a mile from the runway and went down into the Potomac River. There were no survivors, 67 in total. Recovery crews worked the frozen river for days. What followed was one of the most complex investigations in NTSB history. A final report, released February 17, 2026, running to nearly 500 pages. Accident investigators often describe disasters like this using something called the Swiss cheese model. Every safety system has small gaps, and normally those gaps don't line up. On this night, they did. 1, an institutional failure. 2, a human factor, expectation bias. 3, an overloaded system. 4, a fixable technology gap. It's a reminder that behind 50 new safety recommendations and a 500-page report are 67 people who boarded 2 aircraft that night expecting a routine flight home. The unsettling part of this story isn't the collision itself. It's the 15,000 near misses that came before it, none of which made the news because nothing happened. This crash wasn't an anomaly. It was a warning system finally running out of luck. If you want to understand how disasters like this actually happen, not the headlines, but the chain of small, ordinary decisions that lead there, that's what this channel is for. New breakdowns go up every week. Subscribe if you want to keep learning from the mistakes the rest of the world forgets.